Hello, good afternoon. My name is Thomas Wittig, and today we are going to explore the special dynamics in recruiting or in a workforce model and the recruitment pipeline. Today's format will be a look under the hood. This is something that many of you have asked for, to give basically more an insights view on the work we are doing with our simulation models and our digital twins. And I want to start with that today, and then give you a perspective how this exercise also can be used to create stock and flow consistent dashboards with an example of the recruitment space that we are working on today. And also, I want to give you a sneak preview into a new tool that we are developing right now, which is designed to facilitate strategy discussions, workshops, etc., around recruitment marketing and recruitment performance scenarios. So first things first, here's a model that I wanted to show. This is really the look under the hood into a modeling tool that I use quite often. This is Vensim from Ventana Systems. And basically, we are looking at a dashboard about typical recruitment and workforce management and staffing metrics and KPIs. So let me walk you through this. At the center here, we have our workforce. And the model right now is kicked into an equilibrium. I think this is kind of the good practice to start with, especially if you want to explore how your system, how your digital twin should operate in equilibrium. Now we know that equilibrium really doesn't exist in the real world because everything is changing all the time. But if we can isolate the feedback structure, the stock and flow structure, then we can kick this model into equilibrium, and that helps us to better understand what happens if we trigger it with a certain impact or a shock impulse, which we will do in a few moments here. So workforce is in equilibrium, which means we have exactly the number of people that we want to. So workforce and required workforce is the same. We have an ongoing level of 6 vacancies here. That is simply because the workforce sees an attrition rate, so people are leaving, also called people turnover. And then on the left side, we have here in the lower left-hand corner our talent pool. So we can draw off an ongoing talent pool of 40 people, which are in interview ready stages. And we have here what I call these staffing supply line. This is basically the number of employees that we have hired, but which have not yet started. So they might have signed a contract, but they have a notice period, so they need to complete their previous assignment or study or whatever, and then they will join the workforce. On the right side, I show here a couple of flows. So think about the flows as the inflows into the stocks, for example. And the top right-hand chart here shows the average flow of people basically accepting, starting, and the required staff. Now, in equilibrium, this should be the same number of people. So because we need to backfill the same number of people which are leaving per time period. For example, if we have 6 people leaving per week, which is what's happening here, people per week is the units for the flow. And then that means we need to have 6 people starting per week. So that's why you see only 1 line, but it's actually 3 lines laid on top of each other. And here we have the pipeline flows. Now, our recruitment pipeline here, and I didn't bring a chart for that, but I can do the voice over here. The recruitment pipeline is basically consists of 3 stages. People have submitted an application, then they are screened, so they move to the next stage, so they become interview ready. And when the hiring manager concludes they should get an offer, they are in the offering stage, which means that's the number of people who have been presented with an offer and who take their time to review and accept or decline. So that's basically how it works. Now, this model is in equilibrium. What I'm showing here is a couple of sliders that we can work with. So the first thing that we might want to do, actually, since the model is in equilibrium, I could say, for example, let's change the average number of days that people stay in the organization. And you see the model stays in equilibrium. That kind of makes sense, right? So the only thing that changes is the supply line, the talent pool, etc. So the faster the turnover here, the bigger our talent pool needs to be. So here we have a talent pool of over 100 people to keep the organization in equilibrium. You know? So that's important to note. Now, if I set everything back to 0, and now I introduce here a step change, so we can click here. Oh, let me do it this way. Sorry, it's not behaving exactly the way I want it. So let me pull this back. So we see now a 10% step change from 1,200 people to 1,320. That's the amount of people that we require. And you see how the workforce is slowly adjusting to this new level of desired staff members that we have in the organization. And now we see some kind of really interesting behavior over time. So first of all, as the new requirement comes in here at the week 8, our vacancies shoot up. So we need to have about 120 vacancies. These are positions to be filled, so they need to be managed as requisites for the organization or jobs to be opened, etc. And that triggers the recruitment marketing process, the accepting process, application process, and so on. So that shoots up, and over time we are working through this backlog and bring this down back to 0 on a new level. There's a slight difference now, because now we have a new level of people in the organization, which also means, at all things equal, our attrition rate would be slightly higher. So the system is setting at a new level of people that we need to backfill here. Also, what's happening is we see our required staffing rate is shooting up. Now, this is not exactly 120 people, because the operations manager might take some time and not adjust on the spot how many people they want to hire, which means that they take some time to request new open positions over time. But that's something that we can also play with a little bit here to see what the difference is. And then the important thing to note here is, even though the manager says, okay, I have a need of, let's say, 120 additional people, which is basically the vacancy stock here, they, of course, do not start right away, because it takes some time. The delays and the flows propagate throughout the system. Now, the other thing that we see down here is that the basically the application rate is shooting up, because we are conducting more recruitment marketing campaigns, which means we have an inflow of campaigns, and the maximum here is around week 16, as you can see that. And then a lower number of people would be screened, so the screening rate is increasing, and with a bit of delay, also our offering rate is increasing, okay? And this is because we need to first grow our talent pool, so to speak, and have a number of people that we can interview. And then over time, this stock, this talent pool, is declining then by us filling the positions, or if we don't require the talents to be hired, then they will also leave, they will drain away, because they get new opportunities, new offerings, etc. One thing that often happens is that when this occurs, that there is always a misbalance between what people want and what's already in the pipeline. So think about the recruitment chain as a supply chain. And we do have some people in the pipeline here. So you see the maximum occurs at around week 16, where we have a lot of people who we have hired already, but they're not yet available. They will flow into the workforce over time as they would be onboarded and start their work as active employees. That's often a cause of imbalance, that we ignore this pipeline and we overhire, or we over-recruit, we over-attract talents, and then we have this imbalance of usually not enough or too many people, too many candidates. But most of the time, pretty much all of the organization do not have enough qualified candidates over time. So that's interesting. Now, a couple of things that we can also ask here is what happens, for example, that's something really interesting to take a look at, when we adjust the workforce too fast, so that we respond very fast to the changing dynamics in the workforce. And let me simulate that by moving the slider slightly here. And what we can see, if we move this one step further to, I think now we are at 1.5 weeks, you see that a new dynamic emerges here. So our supply chain, our supply line, and the flows are starting to oscillate. So they are hovering here around the new optimum, the new level. And you can also see it here slightly, that we have hired too many people, or sometimes too little people, a too small number actually. So if we move this further down to 1 week, and you see now that the movement is accentuated. We see that quite often, where people say, okay, we are like all over the place. We have sometimes not enough. Then operations is asking us to hire way more people, but then we have too many people in the supply line, so we have hired too many people. And since they are hired, they would also start. So that means that the workforce needs to be adjusted downward. That's obviously not a good idea if you have to hire and then reduce, hire, reduce, hire, reduce. That's putting a lot of strain on the organization. So let's put that back to 0. What happens if we take too long to extend offers? So let's move that. That basically means that while our talent pool is growing, it's also taking much longer to basically bring down this backlog of vacancies and to close the workforce gap. So all these changes considered could be contributing to undesired dynamics in the workforce. This is a basic model that I like to use in sessions with management teams and HR recruitment operations teams, because it helps us to better understand what's happening. And to give a little bit of an outlook how we actually use that, I want to share some early work which is going to be published about in the next hours or couple of days. And the question often is, why do we not see that on the dashboard? Now, often what we see on dashboards are metrics like time to hire for the month, cost per hire, etc. But if we want to really understand how things are flowing through the enterprise, we should be building this kind of stock and flow consistent view. So we know, where are the people, on which stage are they, what are the flow rates over time, how do they evolve over time, and how are we doing against our recruitment goals. So let me flip over here to an example. This is a recruiting dashboard. It has basically 3 tabs, so workforce, staffing operations, and recruitment operations. We are looking here at the first part of the year. So think about, you are at the end of April or towards the end of April, and you have a business review, and then you want to take a look at the numbers. Now, this model basically is based on the data set that we just saw. So we see we have a staff increase here from week 8 over to week 9 and 10. We suddenly need to move up to 1,200 employees, for example, because we have maybe won a big client, or acquired a company, or went into a new market. And the desired workforce, of course, is shooting up immediately, but there is some inertia, which means that it takes some time until the workforce is catching up. And you see here, even if we would have known this maybe a couple of weeks or so in advance, so here it takes maybe 6-7 weeks or so, and we haven't seen much of a movement. No? So here we have the recruitment flows. Here we have the candidates which have been hired but haven't started yet. And here we see a breakdown of the people in the various stages of the recruitment funnel. All of this is stock and flow consistent. Okay. Now, in this case, we also see what is the implication here when we put a cap on the hiring recruitment marketing budget. So here, this enterprise is putting a cap at 2,000 units, let's say euros per week. But what would be actually required would be this red line here. So in order to fill the positions very quickly in line with the operational targets, they would have to spend much more. But since it's a cap, that basically limits the number of applications which are entering the recruitment pipeline. Now, what that actually also means is that the cost is increasing, and the cost per hire is also fluctuating. Now, this is quite an interesting movement, and we shall see that maybe in another part of the presentation, how that's changing over time. If you suddenly see cost per hire is shooting up, typically the response to that dynamic in a management discussion is, well, wait a second, why are we spending so much per hire? Let's reduce the budget. Now, what happens if we reduce the budget? We're basically choking the inflow into the recruitment pipeline and make things worse over time. No? And in, for example, a service organization, that might mean that the number of understaffed days, which is already high here and increasing, is getting even worse. And our staff utilization is going through the roof, which means we're losing more people, which means we have to replace more people. So that's kind of the feedback loops. Now, I don't want to go too much into detail. There will be a more detailed breakdown, but let me just show some of the tabs here. So this is a stock and flow consistent example of the staffing operations, which is concerned with opening requisitions, opening jobs to be hired, to be filled, and filling the jobs over time. So here you see the vacancy creation is shooting up, and then it takes quite some time until the vacancies are brought back in line and brought back in equilibrium. Here we have the recruitment operations funnel, which is breaking down everything by the stage in the candidate, in the talent pipeline. So here the last stage would, I show here the last stage first, which would be the offers outstanding. And then we can go backwards and see how many people do we have in the pipeline over time, and how many applications did we get. So where are we with that? And here we see the inflows and outflows. So the application rate in blue, and you see that is limited because we put a cap on the recruitment budget. And then over time, our hiring rate is increasing and then winding down again. So that's all good. The last piece, and that's a sneak preview into an, let's call it alpha or beta version of a new simulation tool that we have been working on. It looks like this. Same numbers, same views, but in an interactive, let's say, digital twin format. So here we have our baseline. We see how the current scenario is unfolding. we see here the hiring rate in people per week, which is feeding the hired candidates. So that's shooting up. And then, of course, we take the foot off the pedal when we have enough people, and that's changing over time. Now, the interesting thing here is this is an unconstrained view, and you see the budget cap is very high. If I put that down to our budget cap situation, you see what's happening with the stocks, the key stocks and flows. So let's put that to our, let's say, 1,500 or 2,000 euros per week spent. And now you see the difference here in the scenario. So this would be our, let's say, freewheeling scenario. And here is the budget constraint scenario. And then you can see here what that is doing to the recruitment pipeline. So that's a new way of working. And we're looking forward to use this in our upcoming educational series, but also this can be used in workshops and scenario planning situations for customers. So there's much more information available here. And we also have a key summary of the KPIs, so we can see what's happening over time. And we can even select a lot of the key stocks and flows. So here, for example, if we want to take a look at the vacancies, how that's developing over time, that's our flow here. And we can also, for example, take a look here at the vacancy filling rate in people per week. Actually, that's what we have just been looking at. Maybe the offerings rate, so how many people are accepting the offering. And there you see, in an ideal case, we would have reached the maximum in week 17 after the increase in desired workforce was introduced from week 8 to 9 and 10. So that would take 7 weeks. And if we constrain the budget, that takes much longer. So that's a much longer period of time. Now, so interesting things ahead. Now, this is a look under the hood. We walked from a simulation model to a consistent stock and flow model to a fully blown digital twin simulation, a real-time simulation, which we can use to better understand how is our recruiting system behaving under different conditions. How do the decisions impact our outcome and performance scenario, and what could be better scenarios. By the way, I didn't show that here, but this is also designed to show a decrease. A lot of organizations, let's do the opposite here. Let's not do, let's do 11% decrease of the workforce and see what it's doing. So here we can see we have basically, we suddenly need to cut down our vacancies because we have too many people, and then we either need to reduce the workforce and or rely on the attrition to drain the actual workforce. And here we can also see how the workforce starting rate is behaving, because when we stop the recruiting, the start rate is going down. And when we have reached our new operating level of the workforce, which would be somewhere here, maybe week 28, etc., we slowly start ramping up again until we are back in equilibrium at a lower level of running the organization. Fantastic views. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And if you would like to explore these kind of scenarios for your organization and uncover the dynamics and troubleshoot what might be missing in terms of your reporting requirements, your insights, but also your operating policies and procedures, please reach out to us and we will be happy to work with you. So that's it for today. Thank you for your interest and participation, and we will look forward to the next topics where we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that we have covered here today, but also other application areas in sales, marketing, finance, customer success, and so on. So with that, I wish you, as always, good luck.